Commission member.
Joe Terry, Secretary.
Lee Tall, Commission Member.
Sue Wesley, Commission Member.
Adam Tegan, Community Development.
Gentlemen, for the record.
Brett Selshedder, YMCA.
Steve Tank with Myron Construction.
Mike Boviat, Legacy Foundation.
Brian Hodson with Zimmerman Architectural Studios.
Excellent, thank you all for being here. It is Fran's last meeting and Sue's first meeting, so welcome and
Goodbye.
early farewell before we get the meeting over and I forget to do that, so. All right, thank you all for
I just wanted to
that.
save you the chance of not having to fire me.
Yeah, no, yeah, I won't do it over tweet. Item 1, approval of the report from March 5th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting. Commissioners, what are your wishes regarding that item?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Burkhart, second by Aaron. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item 2, maps and plats received. We've got one identified on our list, and that's Gerber CSM, which is in our packets. Commissioners, what are your wishes regarding that item, or is there comments, Adam, you want
The one thing I would comment is on the official map, First Street North is 66 feet wide. It's shown as 60 feet on the CSM, so any approval would be subject to an additional 3 feet of road dedication on First Street North.
to entertain a motion on that item? Subject to the,
I'll make a
3-foot
motion to
dedication.
approve, subject to the additional 3 foot of right-of-way dedicated.
and motion by Ferkey, is there a second?
Second that.
Second by Tao. Any further discussion? This is the former lamplight, right? That we bought from the
Correct.
county?
Yep, and then First Street, the owner of First Street
Yeah.
purchased properties and is putting up a small storage building on one.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item B, other maps or plats received. The next being the name of Bocock for, it's an extraterritorial review. It's in the town of Grand Rapids, off 49th Street, between 49th and 52nd, looks like.
And this one came in on Friday after the packet had gone out, so it is in the town of Grand Rapids, but it is within 1.5 miles of city boundary, so it is subject to our subdivision review. The only comment we received is, well, it complies with our code except for the roads around it are smaller than they would be in the city. So I guess I would recommend it being approved, subject to us just pointing out that it has substandard right-of-way adjacent to the CSM.
Commissioners, what are your wishes regarding that item?
Move.
Motion by Aaron, subject to that addition by staff.
Right.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Ferkey. Any further discussion? Seeing none, moving to a vote. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The last one, which was received today from the YMCA. Adam, you want to talk about this one?
This one's a little bit more exciting. Obviously, it's tied to the site plan review that is going to be before you shortly after this. Basically, they are taking and reconfiguring a number of lots, creating one large lot that would be for the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA. That would be Lot 1. Lot 2 would be for the potential relocation of the VA clinic. So that's in the southeast corner, I guess I would say. Lot 3 would be where currently the gas station and the restaurants are. Basically, they're combining those into one outlot that would be for potential future development. And then Lot 4 would be, again, another future outlot for development. So really the one that is being created for the purpose of what you're reviewing later is Lot 1 and Lot 2. Overall, the only item that I have noticed, and staff has not had a lot of time to review this yet, but per the PUD, it does require that the portion of Hale Street that was vacated previously be rededicated, so that would be, I believe it's 33 feet south of Lot 3. So that's the only addition or change that I'm aware of at this time. But this one, if you do approve it, I would just ask that it be subject to any additional comments that I get back from city staff.
Any additional comments by you folks since you're in the room? Okay. Commissioners, any thoughts or entertain a motion as well?
Motion to approve, subject to additional staff comments and additional review.
Motion by Burkhart, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Aaron. Any further discussion?
That would be Including the rededication of
Yeah.
Hales.
Correct, yep, and that's required by the PUD, so even if it's not a condition of your approval, it's still required.
Okay.
Moving to a vote, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Item 3, Plan 180141, Shelby County YMCA. The applicant is requesting site plan approval to allow the redevelopment of a former mall into a new YMCA Boys and Girls Club and VA clinic within the B2 General Commercial Planned Unit Development District. The subject property is located at 555 West Grand Avenue, parcels 3402-581, 582, 597, 597A, 597, and 261. So we'll open the floor to folks from the YMCA to give a presentation or background on the request.
Sure. This is a touch screen. I can.
Yeah, you should be able, if you want to scroll up and down, just touch the gray areas on the side and push up and down. If you want to zoom in, it's just like your phone, so just kind of do the pinch and pull.
Okay.
For the minutes, could I get your name again, please?
You bet. Hotson, H-A-T-Z-U-N-G.
Thank you.
First name is Brian. And I'm with Zimmerman, the architect, Zimmerman Architectural Studios.
Thank you.
So just so we all have our bearings here, I think in this drawing, we're right here, right? We're in this, right across the street from, this is the
Yes.
old J.C. Penney. So, all right, so let's go back up here to maybe the overall site plan. So again, we're turned a little bit, so we're right up here. Project involves modification, demolition, and renovation of the existing Wisconsin Rapids Mall. So we are leaving portions of the building up and renovating inside of those. We are also fully demolishing other large portions of the building, particularly those that do not suit well to being remodeled inside an existing building, like a pool or a locker room or a gym. Those are the kind of spaces that need new construction. So in this footprint, this is our current. This is our current footprint here. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Oh yes. This part of the building is the existing J.C. Penney's that will be remodeled, and will be about half of that will be the Boys and Girls Club as a tenant for the Y. And they will have an entrance at the kind of the north end of the building here. In this area of the building, this is primarily new construction. The YMCA entrance is right through here, and we have the pool here, the locker room space, and the gym. In this area, we have a kind of a through connection here, and then on this side, we have an entrance for childcare that's operated by the YMCA. So the childcare entry is right in here, and the childcare space is in there. Additionally, on the site, we have this shell space, but it's existing mall space. So Centralia Center comes right up to here. This is existing mall space that we are planning on renovating, and the VA, which is located up here, would be housed in this location as a tenant. The main VA entrance would be off of the southwest side there with a dedicated parking lot. From a site development standpoint,
Gets cranky, sorry.
yeah, no, that's all right. Main site entries would be right here, I think would be considered a main entry, and this would be considered a main entry into the kind of the YMCA campus, for lack of a better term. Parking for the Y and for the Boys and Girls Club would be up in this area. There is an athletic field, kind of a multi-purpose, general purpose athletic field, turf. It's not synthetic or anything, just for a variety of YMCA programs on that bit of grass out there. So happily bringing some green back to a kind of a sea of pavement here. We have, in this area here, we have our kind of service entry for YMCA deliveries. trash going out and deliveries coming in, pool chemical deliveries. So not large trucks that are coming in, but they do get deliveries, products, paper, and then the dumpster trucks and that sort of thing coming in this area right here. Let's see. There's a little bit enlarged area of that. We have a ground-mounted pool dehumidification unit that we are screening here, along with dumpster enclosure on this end nearby the southwest side of the building where we're getting deliveries. That really should be on the ground. It's a large unit, so we're able to screen it better on the ground. We had some nice renderings that maybe help paint a different picture, not a different picture, just a better, some aerial renderings. Yeah, here we go. So this, near the back end of your packet, shows a little bit of the massing and how the building is arranged. So this view is kind of from the northwest, I think. Main entry here into the YMCA, the pool volume right here, lockers, and then the gymnasium back here. This is an addition onto the old JCPenney building for the two-story wellness center space. We have a fenced-in playground for use by the Y Childcare and also the Boys and Girls Club, so they'll be sharing that space there. And then like I had mentioned, the Boys and Girls Club entry at the north corner of the building into the old JCPenney. Looking at the building from the other kind of other side, here's the pool, back of house areas, exit stair, the gymnasium, and then clipped a little bit in the view, but signifying an entry piece here for the VA clinic there. And then Centralia is on the other side, and we are not doing anything with the Centralia Center. From a material standpoint, we are proposing variety of materials that we alluded to the last time we were in the room. We have precast panels at a lot of the longer expanses of the building, but we are trying to break up the massing, and the height of the building, and put glass at the corners in the pool. We have some metal panel at the main entry. Everything is kind of a cool palette, aluminum, anodized aluminum kind of material palette. And then these orange looking pieces are, it's a Nichiha product. It's a fiber cement wood panel kind of piece that we're using throughout. Trying to use it in sparing fashion, but use it throughout as another accent to the main precast. And then the JCPenney's building will be essentially just repainted to coincide with the color scheme. That's got a very striated, brushed concrete face. Skipped over the landscape. First of all, are there any questions? If you guys want me to stop talking, please feel free to.
Todd, do you have a question?
And you might get to it with
Yeah.
the landscaping, but is there any retention ponds needed?
Thank you. That's a great question. We are not, based on our understanding with the DNR and the requirements here, we are not needing to do any volume. We're not needing to retain any volume of water. The only thing we need to do is manage the quality of the water. So DNR usually has two requirements, volume and quality. So we are treating the quality of the water, and we're doing so with like a bio-infiltration basin through brick pavers in the parking lot, because we don't have a lot of site area to dedicate. We don't have a lot of land to dedicate for ponds. So I was looking for the back up here to the site plan. So let's go to this area. So the whole parking lot is obviously not a permeable paver. We have permeable pavers in this area. It's this little brick hatch. So strategically located around the site to coincide with as much as we can with the opportunities for drainage and the grading without having to reshape the whole site. But those areas get scooped out and kind of programmed replacement of engineered fill and other media to help screen and clean that water that's going back into the aquifer. So to directly answer your question, no ponds, just water quality treatment through the parking lot.
So is that water filtered individually in each location, or is it tied to a piping system to go to a central?
I believe in these locations, it is just infiltrating back into the water table. The parking, excuse me, the playground, the sports field is green space, but it's not necessarily a infiltration basin. So it's just green space.
Okay.
That grade.
Well, at grade up in this area, by the time we get around here, I think we have a few contours that we have to deal with to keep that field manageably level. So we're proposing fencing and some retaining block along there.
Okay.
As far as the landscaping goes, I know there were some questions about that, or some comments. So let's use this diagram here. In that the site is, very much building and parking, we've tried to interject landscaping and green space opportunities where we can. The field isn't rendered green, but that is all turf there. I don't know that necessarily counts towards any of the landscaping points that we need. And I understand we have 3 categories of points. We have foundation plantings, perimeter around the building. We have an interior to the parking lot. And then the 3rd category is the public street frontage. So our landscape architect has put in as much as possible in his estimation. So you can see every parking island has got a tree in it, and just for a little sense of scale, these are scale and size of trees. These are maples or lindens kind of trees, the green ones, and he figures they'll be about a 30-foot diameter canopy when they mature. The purple trees are ornamentals, something a little bit smaller and a little bit more decorative. Maybe a crabapple, the varieties that don't bear fruit necessarily.
Yeah, if I can interject real quick on the landscaping, I spent an hour or 2 on the phone with the landscape architect. Obviously, we had taken our draft zoning code language for landscaping and applied it to this project. Looking at the landscape plan, at least knowing that it's a redevelopment and it's a site that is completely paved and hard surface now, it's not 100% of what is required to the letter of the law in the code. However, I think there's some flexibility in there. And one consideration I would actually ask for is that if you approve this site plan, that we add some language to that condition that basically allows that they have to comply with the landscaping code or an alternative that's agreeable by city staff, meaning to give us a little more flexibility. So maybe you can't make the parking lot landscaping work, but maybe we bump up a little bit more around the building, or vice versa. In talking with them, for example, they like to put shrubs and things around every single one of those trees that's in the middle of the parking lot. That will actually probably exceed the number of landscaping points that is necessary for the shrub category, but you may be a little short on the tree category. So you're still getting the green space that you want, you're still breaking up the parking like our code wants, so the intent is being met, but maybe not just to that exact number. So in general, this is still obviously far and away probably the most heavily landscaped parking lot we would see in town, and that's what we would expect to see moving forward and the expectation. So I think it'll be a great example. Again, even if it's not 100%, that 180 points are right smack dab on the head. So.
Not to mention, breaks up the traffic flow to accomplish more of a safer, I guess, access and driving than what we've seen at the property in the past.
Correct.
Backing up to stormwater management, is all of the site water being dealt with on site, or is some of it leaving?
I believe some of it's leaving through the storm sewer.
Okay.
But the percentage that's required to be dealt with from a quality standpoint is being managed through those, these kind of, well, they don't show up on this drawing, but those paver areas. So,
Yeah, 100% of the site basically right now goes to the storm sewer. There is no infiltration or water quality treatment as it sits today.
So we won't be cleaning up the water that's going to the storm sewer, we'll just be reducing the amount and cleaning that amount by infiltration.
I don't believe I had any other planned remarks or anything else that felt necessary to cover, so I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thought or question I had related to the existing parking lot that's now been carved out into another lot, which is between the subway and the existing, and that the plan is just to, it says parking to remain, it's going to remain asphalt, and at least for the near future anyway, there's not going to be any access restrictions to that. It's still going to remain asphalt.
Yeah, so, so we've got a kind of a saw cut line here where we figure that would be the extent of what we need to do to get everything pitching back to where it needs to go and replace and kind of, you know, the existing building comes out almost that far.
Yeah.
So we have to repair that landscape back, that surface back. So there was no immediate plan to do anything with this area until, you know, that property is sold and transferred. So.
Can you also cover what's going to happen with the restaurant and the gas station area? Is that, are those buildings will be removed or?
There are no immediate necessarily plans with the restaurant. However, the gas station and the tanks are going to be removed. They were supposed to be done today actually, but we're going to push that back to next week, Monday, because of the weather. But the canopy and whatever residual there was for the car wash will all be cleared and redone there. So that'll be done here in the coming week.
Thank you.
The CSM that you had actually shows the property line down in this area. So there is a portion of shared parking, if you will. So a way that the YMCA can reduce the amount of required parking by sharing with whatever development happens here. So.
Part of the root of my question is around the cost of stormwater and the stormwater fee, right? And obviously you're familiar with the city stormwater fee, so I was just wanting to understand if there was any short-term plans to remove that asphalt to make it green space, or you know, it's kind of an intermediate, but that's been addressed.
Yeah, there were no plans to do anything with it until something needed to be done with it. So.
Commissioners, other comments, questions on aspects of the site plan? There's a staff report in the packet with 6 conditions of approval. Obviously, Adam's recommendation of of approval, and then 6 different conditions, one of which I think was just talked about now is the landscape plan. That the city staff had the right to almost modify or get as close to the code, given the complexities of the site. But Adam, do you want to walk through the rest of those conditions again?
Sure. I had also included the original conditions for the plan development, which is attachment number 1, just to kind of refresh your memory of what we had discussed a few months ago. But basically, conditions of approval number 1 is just that the building and the site's gonna end up looking like what was submitted, that they're not gonna pull a 180 and throw a metal shed up, which obviously I don't think they're gonna do based on level investment, but we wanna know that what was submitted will be in place. Number 2 is tied to lighting for the site. At this time, they don't have a full-blown photometric plan. Again, those are relatively straightforward. You put a light down, it gives a certain measurement, you move things around just to make sure it meets it. Again, just basically re-quoting what was in the PUD, which is not to exceed 0.2 foot candles at the property line. Number 3 is tied to that landscaping. Again, the mayor covered that. Condition number 4, they identified 2 entry signs on the site plan, one at basically where the existing Rapids Mall former electric reader sign is, and then one, I believe, across from City Hall. So just they haven't designed the architectural look and feel of those signs.
One here.
So that will just have to be submitted for review and approval. Nothing exciting there, I guess. And then the CSM be submitted, which you reviewed and approved, and then just compliance with all the other applicable codes and ordinances, whether that's in the zoning code or in the adopted PUD. Yeah, but overall, staff did recommend approval. We didn't receive any major concerns from any other departments when the review was completed.
Commissioners, additional questions, comments?
Backing up to the lighting plan, I know Joe has brought up the color of the light in the past, and do we have any concerns revisiting or discussing that in this regard?
I haven't addressed it. Our zoning code does not address the color of the lighting. It's just merely tied to is there any bleed over, and basically trying to keep a dark sky so it's not directed upwards. But if the commission feels strongly one way or the other on trying to get a warmer light or a less harsh white light, that's up to the commission. But I did not address that.
Yeah, I guess the primary issue that I've found in some of the different training sessions that I've attended dealing specifically with lighting is as the color of the light gets whiter, the lighting itself has to be designed to a tighter standard. There's the softer, the yellower the light is. If you have too much light, it's not perceived as an issue. The whiter it gets, and the more natural that light gets, too much light becomes a problem. Generally, the whiter the light, though, that's preferred. And so, I don't have any, specific standards or anything like that. But that is something, especially in the context of street lighting, you can't just replace a sodium light with an appropriate wattage of like a 400 watt sodium. It'd be a 150 watt LED. You have to be cognizant of the color because that 150 watt LED being white carries a little different perception. And so that is something to consider, I think, in lighting plans is the color of the light, although I'm not in a position at this point to make any recommendations.
Thank you, sorry to put you on
No,
the
that's
spot
fine.
there.
But, I mean, even just what our old code was substantially more generous. I want to say it was 2 foot candles at the property line, which is considerably brighter than 0.2. So we, at least with the new code and regulations, we're trying to address that bleed over and that perception a little bit. Whether or not it's perfect, it's kind of hard to say, although the Quick Trip, for example, development, that 0.2 standard was enforced at that development. So if you've been by there and experienced that lighting quality up there, that's, I guess, comparable to what you would see on this site.
I think the commercial nature of this district helps, but I think there are times, especially in transitional parts of town, where we're gonna have to maybe pay better attention. Case in point, the quick trip development.
So the more yellow the light, I mean, you're not gonna get a yellow light with a LED, right?
Correct.
And I think as something that's certainly more efficient, the trend is certainly going to the LEDs,
Absolutely.
you know, and when I,
And the color selection, I think generally around that 4,500 to 5,000 color is, is about as white as you want to get. Any whiter than that, you start to get a little blue tint, but that's generally managed by the, the electrical contractors that are designing the lighting for those facilities.
Any comments on lighting since discussing? It's obviously forthcoming. with
Yeah,
the-
we're happy to work with you on whatever light temperature you'd like to see it fall. I think with LEDs, they're somewhat programmable that you can land on the right, in the right spectrum within the same kind of fixture unit, whereas a high-pressure sodium is always going to be a very yellow light, so.
Our directive too from the owners has been to limit the light pollution, not only in the surrounding area, which means down-directed light source LED really mitigates any bleed that would go on either side of the lights. So it's the most environmentally friendly aspect, but also in keeping with the focus on the community that they continue to drive. So I don't personally, that's pretty much what we're doing in all commercial projects now, but it's even to the next level with the Boys and Girls Club.
One thing I just thought of is pedestrian access to the site. With this being a lot of children, is there any concerns with respect that we should think of access to the site and safe access to the site?
Well, it's been raised, I think, in conversations outside of the site plan process. I don't know, is there any initial reaction, Brett, you want to mention about that? I know you've talked about it previously, but not in this setting.
I would say that majority of your children are going to be transported to the site, with the exception of maybe the children from Meade School. And so, we're kind of thinking about that, working with the city about how do we provide safe access across the expressway to the site from there. But, you come from the other side of the bridge, you have good pedestrian access today and bike trails. But I would say a good majority of your children are being transported to the location, which is good, but we still want to provide safe access for kids on bikes.
And, I mean, just from a planning perspective, I think the outlots as they're developed will be a key driver in that, but that's really when you need to consider that. The way there's not a lot of parking lot necessarily being developed under the Y, but as those other outlots develop, making sure that there are sidewalks and periphery of those developments and things like that, so you're not walking down a drive aisle, I think will be key on that.
Does that address your question? And in terms of bicycle accommodations for parking, our new code has some prescription related to bicycle parking.
It's a recommended threshold under the new one. It's not a requirement, is what we settled on.
I didn't see, maybe you can point out quickly where that was on the plan. I don't know if I saw it, actually.
Bike parking? I'm looking myself right now.
Especially if farmer's market has retained it all in sight, that's part on ensuring there's enough accommodations for that.
I don't know if we have any.
What's the new code require, Adam?
We don't have a Boys and Girls Code. I would probably put it under other, which is anywhere from 3 to 7% of the number of required parking spaces should be bike, is what they recommend.
Whereas a school's 10% for number of students plus 3% for
For
number of
like City Hall
employees.
would be 10%.
Government 10%, so somewhere within 3 to 7 for other and 10 being the other, or being the schools or the governmental.
But you're saying 3 to 7% of what the occupancy?
Of what would be required by code. So for example, I think our code would require right around 300 parking spaces, and what,
Oh, for the cars.
correct, total. And what this code is saying is that consideration should be given so that 10% or 30, there should be capability to house basically 30 bikes.
Okay.
Would be the rough way of looking at it. But again, under the new code, it's a permissive language, it's saying it's encouraged, but we don't require bike parking under the new code, we just have a kind of calculation that's recommended.
Okay. I think we have plenty of opportunities, plenty of places around both Boys and Girls Club and the Y entries to work in that kind of volume of bike parking, around 30. At first I thought you were talking about occupant load of the building. That would have me a little bit, be more like 100 like spots, which would be a lot.
Based on the parking
seems
ratios.
reasonable, probably.
Okay.
So I would offer, I guess, a motion to approve the request with the addition of bike parking to be developed within the site plan as another condition, number 6. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know at what point I should ask a question. I do want to ask about the landscape, deferring that to staff, and just so I have an understanding of what the expectation will be. I just have a concern that we're going to be trying to replace, you know, what are the tree points? 30 points a tree or something like that?
Canopy, large canopy is 30 points under the current.
Yeah, so by our count, I think we had 16 of those trees to try and maneuver on the site, which was just felt impossible. And if we convert those points into lower value point shrubs, I mean, that could quickly get to an unmanageable number. And you know, we tried to take a practical approach with this, not just can we get enough of these dots on the plan to satisfy a requirement. We also want to think about it from an operational standpoint, and not that those parking islands in the parking lot are, you know, planted up like Versailles and just have a lot of stuff on it that might not live in that kind of environment in the parking lot. So I want to be clear if we're trading one thing or not, or if it's more of a, I don't know, I just want to be a little bit more clear on that.
I mean, if I can answer just from my perspective as the staff person, it's more of what's reasonable and what can be accomplished and maintained. I don't want to overplant something and have trees growing into each other. I don't want to have so many bushes that they don't look good and they're impossible to maintain. So it may not be that we get 100% of the total points. I mean, that's realistically, again, because it is a very unusual site. If this was a green square, our current landscaping code is very easy to meet, probably. I mean, obviously, Quick Trip and some of the newer developments we've had have met that. But this is not a greenfield development, this is a redevelopment, and you're really trying to, it's a large site, but they're trying to maximize or minimize the amount of land that they're redeveloping, so that causes challenges.
And I think, if I may, just as a single commissioner, I think it's what's practical, but at the same time, looking at, you know, building footprint and building foundations, it's still a very hardscape site, you know, and so just trying to, I don't think it's a one-for-one trade where we're gonna try to expect all those points to be met, but we still, I think there's maybe some opportunity yet, and I haven't spent the time that you have with the landscape architect to go through that, so I trust that there's gonna be additional review and some submission from your folks to
Yeah,
get
this is
closer.
still a very conceptual landscape plan. It's nowhere near what you would normally review for a full-blown landscape plan, where you can actually see where the bushes are gonna be, what's hard
Yeah,
surface, what's green
comparing it to
space,
what
what's
you
mulch.
just Quick Trip, this is very preliminary.
Correct.
When you mentioned,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
What would the, so if there were, if this were approved by the commission, eventually by the council, and there were landscape plans submitted and negotiations weren't satisfactory between staff and the applicant. What would the typical recourse be?
I guess if it came to an impasse where I feel it's one thing and they feel it's another, I would most likely bring it back before the commission to get a final determination.
Okay.
For a site plan like this, you guys are the final say.
Right.
So although the council will review your minutes and your recommendation, they don't really act on the site plan review. So that's why I would bring it back to this body if
Okay.
it does get
Thank
into
you.
an impasse.
Sue?
When you mentioned the maintenance of the plants and the trees that are going to be there, will there be water piped in to this area, or is this a landscape
Irrigation,
question
you're saying?
for your
Yeah, they could probably answer that a little bit.
We were not planning any irrigation within the landscape islands. We have, water spigots on the outside of the building that we could give water to the perimeter foundation plantings and anything like that. But we were not planning on irrigating the,
parking lot at all?
yeah.
And the landscape code does have maintenance requirements, so if, worst case, half the trees died out in year 2 because of a drought scenario, it's not like, well, I can say, look, we tried. It does require replacement.
So I offered a motion with the addition of the bicycle parking component to be 10%, was it, 30 spaces? 30 spaces, 10%.
I'll second that.
A second by Perky. Commissioners, any other comments, or applicants, any comments, questions? Any of you folks? So just rereading the landscape component, the conditions, the proposed landscaping plan should be finalized and revised to comply with the following restrictions or subject to staff review, as opposed to commission review unless there's a point at which maybe an impasse or a second review by the commission is necessary. Anything further? Seeing nothing further, we'll move into a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. It takes care of the next level of that project. Move for adjournment. Move.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Stand adjourned. Fran, thank you.